Namo Buddhaya, Namo Ratanataya. Good evening to everyone on this full moon night. Seeing our tech support here, you can send appreciation to. Should I not unmute myself here or start video here? Not on here. Okay. And greetings to everyone. Are you able to hear me now? I can see those at our Aranya Bodhi Hermitage. Robert Rubino is putting thumbs up. Meiji Shirley Ann, glad to see you. Warm greetings to you and to everyone. Arthur, nice to see you. Janaki, also Christine, Ananea, Mudita, Mary, nice to see you, Regina, and all others who are joining us. So welcome on this full moon night again here from Dhammadharini Monastery beneath Sonoma Mountain. It is the final full moon of our Vassa this year, our 3-month-long observance that's often called the rains because of it being in the monsoon season in South and Southeast Asia. But here, this time has been the dry season, the drought season, and this year, long fire season for us. And just with this full moon, then the winter rains have come in and the rainy season has begun. In fact, from what we're hearing from the predictions, the rainy season is really beginning in full at this time, with a number of storms incoming for the next week or so, and hopefully there will be a little bit of dry before our Katina, the offering of the robe of merit, on October 31st here at Dhammadharini Monastery, as we're hoping to have that outside, for that to be COVID safe for a small number of friends this year because of pandemic. Those who will be offering the robes, and then welcome to everyone else to be joining in online. For all who would like to join in the Dhamma sharing and rejoice or join in the Sangha Dana, the offerings together, you're all most welcome. And welcome to this 6th and final 2021 Vassa Uposatha Dhamma program. I reflect how over every 2 weeks on the new moon and the full moon Uposatha for these last 3 months, then Venerable Bhikkhunī Asopana, excuse me, getting used to which way I'm pointing on screen. She and I have been co-hosting this program during this Vassa, and we have had such a lot of excellent Dhamma shared on the topic that our community chose as focus for this Vassa, that is on Cittānupassana, mindfulness of mind and of mental states. And this evening, this being the final program, then I'd just like to recognize what we've looked at during this time. The first month, then a focus on the various hindrances, what we call the hindrances or obstructions, and their presence or absence in the mind, and exploring, working with them. And then in our second month, then a focus on exploring the exalted states, the sublime states. and their presence or absence again, and what we may do to cultivate and to develop them. And now in our third month, 2 weeks ago, then Ayasopana hosted Aya Pramawara, who I'm not sure if she's here with us now, but so much appreciation to Ajahn Pramawara for her offering a reflection 2 weeks ago, exploring freedom on the liberated or released states of mind, the mind freed or not freed, and what's conducive to freedom. So this evening then also we'll be continuing for our final program, then looking further into further exploring freedom and the liberated states of mind. I'd just like to recognize for this full moon that this is called the Vapoya in Theravada Buddhism in Sri Lanka. And this particular full moon there is especially well known for it being the Pavarana full moon, and then also called the Katina Chivaradana day for beginning the Katina Chivaradana season. That means the season, the month after the Vassa observance, where the robes may be offered, robes and other requisites, and especially the one Katina robe that's bestowed upon the Sangha, and then the Sangha awards or bestows on one worthy recipient for them to spread the Katina. And elsewhere in South Asia, then this time is also known as the Katina Chivaradan time for the giving of the Katina robes. And there are some special events that this time is remembered for, and particularly in Buddhism, then in the Buddha's lifetime, one of the days that's called a day of great miracles is remembered as happening on this full moon. So Buddhism is so pragmatic and so practical, and so many of the teachings are so very rational. Sometimes people think there's no place for miracles. And yet we do, even in early Buddhism, find some amazing stories. And in this case, it's not only the Buddha's miracle, but the Buddha's miracle is certainly involved, but also the miracle of someone who the Buddha called his own daughter, Upalavana Therī, who was one of 2 bhikkhunis that the Buddha appointed as amongst his foremost leading disciples. So Khema of great wisdom and Upalavana of great spiritual power, foremost in spiritual power, is what the Buddha said, amongst all of them. Hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of the Buddha's bhikkhunī disciples in his lifetime. And there's really great and amazing story. The Buddha has said to have gone to teach his late mother, Mahamaya, who passed away 7 days after his birth, according to the legends, and then became a divine being, a great Deva. And the Buddha is said to have then disappeared for 1 Vassa, for 3 months, and then gone out of gratitude to her to then teach the Dhamma, sometimes called the higher Dhamma or Abhidharma. This is also sometimes called Buddhist psychology, but perhaps it may have arisen out of what's called the Matika or Matrika, the matrix, the framework of the Buddha's teaching, and then creating and then analyzing the broad framework of what the Buddha taught. But this is also called higher Dhamma, and it forms one of the baskets the three main baskets of the Buddha's teaching: the basket of the suttas, of the discourses, of the Vinaya, monastic discipline, and then also of the Abhidharma. So it's said then that the Buddha traveled to the heaven where his mother Mahamaya had been, say, reincarnated or reborn, reappeared as a great Deva, and then teaching the Dhamma in that realm. Then, according to the traditions, this is how the Abhidharma emerged. And at the end of the Vassa, then the Buddha is said to have reappeared. So in Thai traditions, this is called Deva Rohana, this day. So it's like coming back from the Deva realm. So the Buddha himself was not considered to be a Deva himself, but having gone to teach the Devas, and then including his mom foremost, then returning, and this is called the Deva return, so Deva Rohana, or in India, the Deva Avatar, so which means like them. Avatars just meaning the Buddha's reappearing in this case, or remanifesting in the human realm, having sojourned in the Deva realm. So a greatly miraculous thing. And in some of the stories then, as we find in the Therigatha and the verses of the women elders in the polytext tradition, then Upalawana had the thought to be first to greet the Buddha upon his return, and she had been encouraged by him earlier. In our Buddhist monastic discipline, there are precepts which actually prevent or restrain the monastics who develop particular kinds of psychic power, or say super normal, anyway, extra normal, beyond what's just the normal kind of mental power that people regularly exhibit. So not to be displaying those kinds of powers publicly, but there are a few exceptions, and notably the Buddha made an exception for the first bhikkhunī Mahapajapati, also for his wife and partner over many lifetimes, wife in his lay life, Yasodhara, according to the polytext, then near the end of her life, for both of them, the Buddha asked them to display miracles for the sake of showing those who didn't believe that women could have such spiritual power, even amongst his disciples, showing them what's possible, and thus ameliorating or cutting off. We sometimes use the word cutting off their false views, because of those false views being obstructive for them and for others. So to open up their obstruction in their minds, rooted in gender bias, false views related to body, which can manifest in so many ways with regards to people's thoughts of who may be inferior or superior, whether based on nationality, based on race, based on gender, based on age, based on all kinds of things that we make up to think about who is inferior and superior. And then cause so much suffering and affliction for ourselves and one another because of that. So this is a big part of the Buddha's initiative in his early Sangha, is clearing up these kinds of debilitating and afflictive false views and opening up opportunities for people much more widely, whereas they might have been excluded by the society or even excluded by some religious traditions. So in the case of Upalawana, then also according to the legends, according to the traditions, then as likewise for Sariputta and Mahamoggallana, the Buddha's leading male bhikkhu disciples. There's the legend or the story that's been passed down that the Buddha, even in a past life, admiring a previous Buddha and the diversity of the Buddha's disciples, that previous Buddha's disciples, then with his enormous merits, then made a kind of adhitān or determination that he himself would have the leading disciples who are of the like various races, nationalities, skin colors, varna. So this was something that, in a way, his view was transcendent, and in a way, he recognized how important these things were for people, and it was important for him too. He admired that in a previous Buddha. And so in fulfillment of the parami, or enormous merits, then manifesting in those who became his foremost leading disciples, then Upalawana is said to have been the color of the upala lotus, which is like purple. But people say that this means black. And Mahamoggallana as well. He's often depicted as blue like Krishna, but Krishna means black, Kanha in Pali. So then the Buddha himself is supposed to have golden skin color and blue or green eyes, which is quite, perhaps, I don't know. Some people say maybe it's Iranian background or Egyptian background or something like this. This is what it says in the text. But then having the left hand and right hand disciples who are black and white. And then great diversity amongst nations, and having the deliberately, explicitly, intentionally wishing to have a fourfold community, this open and inclusive with regards to gender. So I like to use the expression manifold Sangha, just so in the name of inclusivity, we don't create more exclusivity by specifically saying that the women and the bhikkhunis are meant to be included, not to then just stay in categories that are then exclusive. So using these skillful means in various ways, transcending so many afflictive views, and then also really recognizing how important these things are in human life and human experience, and wishing to offer what will be most supportive to open up the obstacles and hindrances, be free from them, open up the exalted states and be able to experience them, and to be able to give the support for the release and peace and freedom of the heart that will be focusing on exploring more a little bit later on after our meditation time. So I've written about the story of Upalawana and this miracle at Sankisa. It's also called Sankasa. In India, the name of the article is Amazing Transformations. If you were to Google my name and Amazing Transformations and Upalawana, then you would find it. It's freely available. It was quite an exploration and a great learning for me. And I wrote it a number of years ago, and it's really opening things up for my understanding of how Buddhism has evolved in various ways over time and space, and the great diversity that we find in our Buddhist traditions, and understanding that more deeply. And then also sometimes that helps us to see what's more clearly, what's at the heart, what's at the core there, when we see and deeply understand the manifold manifestations that we are presented with. So now, having offered this brief introduction to this full moon day and some of the things that it's remembered for in Buddhism. Oh, I should have said, it's also in some places known as Buddhist Mother's Day. And that's because of the Buddha's devotion and dedication to teaching the Dhamma to Mahamaya, and then the higher Dhamma teaching emerging from that, the Abhidharma. So for all of us now on this full moon night here, and wherever you are, far and wide, whatever time it may be, now is the time to invite everyone into our a few minutes of meditation time before further Dhamma reflection, exploring freedom. Oh, welcome to make your meditation seat comfortable. Balanced. Open. Your spine lifted if possible. There's a sense of spaciousness and also relaxation. Sensing the touch of body, the environment in which you're sitting, the body's presence in this environment. Here, surrounded by our monastic community, all gathered together in this wonderful hall, sharing with all of you near and far, each in your place of abiding. Through the sense of touch, awareness, how good it is to come home to our body, feelings, and mind, and to the Dhamma. To being present and sensitive and aware. Aware of this body sitting in our environment. The sense of how broadly our awareness is pervading, how it could be broader, to be encompassing the entire area. Here in the Sonoma Valley, out to the base of Sonoma Mountain, upwards to the sky, stars on this full moon night, or touching the breadth of the earth, out to the ocean, and coming back to the room in which we're in, seeing how our awareness can expand and just with moving with our mind to be broad and expansive. Coming back into the space of this room, then perhaps we can keep some of the quality of that broad expansiveness, even as we bring awareness back just into the sphere and space of this body. Also like the earth, also a ground and base, also like the stars, spaciousness. Many atoms. Also like the streams and rivers, the ocean. Also like the winds with our breath, flowing in and out. Pana, prana, life energy, the breath. And the comfort, ease that there is coming home to our meditation in this way, to the basis of touch, the body, sensitive to feelings, aware of the mind, of awareness, the quality and timbre of the awareness. And now we hear the rain beginning again. I think of the showers and the dry earth. How many plants, how many beings welcome this rain, will be nurtured and supported. Likewise, such time for ourselves of awareness pervading the body. When the awareness becomes clear and clean, fresh, calm, clear, and bright, we can steep the body in this. We can steep our heart in this deeply, drenching the body and heart. The neuroscientists say that really our whole nervous system is bathed and cleansed and defragmented by these practices. It truly is a bathing. And when this happens, connections can be made. Light bridges, insight and awareness. Being able to see things from different angles, different perspectives, not only one side. Being able to see things all around and into them deeply. Vipassana. Kind of physical enlightenment as the neural networks connect and light up. We experience it in our mind. It makes for a sense of wholeness, connectedness. Also with the expansiveness, a sense of freedom. Not only does our brain light up in the body, it's like the whole world becomes illuminated. Not just our earth, even. Although what a blessing to see and hold our earth in this way. It's unlimited, really. being with the body, sense of touch. Aware that there's a body. Aware of mind, of awareness. Even just this. The simple rise and fall of the breath in the body. Simple quality of points of touch. Hands, fingers in our lap. Feet, our hips on our seat. From head to foot. Whole body of breath and awareness. Etang santang. Etang panitang. This is peaceful. This is excellent. Remembering the peaceful and excellent states. Sublime. Like coming home, releasing, relaxing more deeply. To very keen, clear, deep awareness. Clearly percipient. Seeing if we sense any binding or sticking anywhere. Perception can give the message, the invitation, the welcome, the guidance to release. if we sense a sticking or binding anywhere. Just gentle, subtle response of release, further opening, deepening, unbinding. Just wherever we sense it, if we do. It's not a demand. It can take the time that it needs, whatever that may be. But still there is a direction. A dedication to release. Releasing into freedom. Deeper opening and awareness. Not forcing, not demanding, just an open invitation. It's gentle, kind, welcoming whatever that may be into freedom. Kindfulness. Sometimes in places, what's needed is to bring kindfulness deeply into that place. Kindness plus awareness. Just to kindly apply, pervade, and hold. Opening up to, opening up with kindness. Just a kind care in which the things can relax. Be more comfortable and safe. In which our needs for kindness are met. In which the need to be seen and known is met. Just with a deep, kind care. That can then allow deeper releasing, opening, expansiveness, spaciousness. Sometimes we can even then feel the breath deepen Go far down into the belly. The breath energy, release. Life energy that was bound up, then releasing. Becoming available again. Released into the system. Kindness can also touch places of fear. Offering the knowing and kindness to places of fear, doubt, worry, affliction, uncertainty, despair, all accessible to the kindness, making the kindness accessible to all. All the things then start to open and reveal themselves. What we can understand and know. That can then become easy, peaceful, comfortable, and free. Not only an internal knowing, but we can see for so many others, so many other beings, living beings likewise as well. And the kindness can be brought to, be freely available to all of this, all of them together. They're able to be touched by our awareness. Comfortably and safely due to the kindness. How this opens up peace and ease. We can simply return to awareness of the body, to touch, points of touch wherever we sense them. Awareness of the mind, quality, timbre of the mind and awareness. What does it feel like? How is it experienced? Very simply. Perhaps with a greater sense of peace, ease, and freedom, or however it may be. We notice the subtle changes from our explorations. Their virtue and qualities. Progressively, expansively, in multifaceted ways. We open up this safe place to explore without limits. Returning again and again to our home bases. Like waves in the ocean, going out, drawing back into the ocean, extending out again onto the shore. We explore, come back again and again. Never the same twice. Deepening exploration. Sense of beauty, healthiness, freedom, growing deeper, stronger. We can think about doing this for something like forever. As long as we have body, as long as we have breath, as long as we have awareness. It's not for grasping, further becoming. It's for deepening, opening, releasing. We can sense into the timelessness of it. Not being bound to particular conditions. And we can look into the Dhamma deeply. Such a way, such a space. Then when we turn our mind to the Dhamma, can penetrate into it, can contemplate, look into the deep, sublime, profound truths, not common, not ordinary, able to be seen by the wise in this path. Such a space. We turn our minds to look into the profound and sublime Dhamma. What is peaceful? What is excellent? What's sublime? With clarity, interest, depth, and breadth, and expansiveness of heart and mind. We can truly enjoy doing so, such exploration. A kind of enjoyment like nothing else. Really excellent for the heart. Really deep for the mind. What we're able to look into, to see and know. The most profound truths. It's good to turn our mind to them. Give time to look into and explore them. Like plunging into them for ourselves. As we have this opportunity. As we have this teaching that points out how to do so. Encourages, guides, and supports us to do so. We would be remiss if we didn't do so, wouldn't we? To miss such an opportunity. Having developed and cultivated these skills, these practices, remember to turn, give time for this. Enough deep time for this. May we remember, may we do so. Making that aspiration, that dedication ourselves. This is not the end of the exploration. like someone who found a very clear, pure spring. Then, having drunk that pure, clear spring water, so healing and fresh, sublime, then they would walk there to that spring to drink from there again and again, contemplating, savoring. Or like someone who was out one night under the deep stars, so clear and bright, and felt so sublime, depth, clarity, awesome magnificence. And whenever they had a chance, again and again, they would go out under the night sky to be present, aware with that depth and clarity and brightness. Like this. Aradhana. Aradhana. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So we had longer meditation time than we generally do. I hope that was good for you. It's our final Final time for the Vassa to have this meditation together with this program. So I'd like to share with you from one sutta. Then the Venerable Ananda went to the fortunate one, the blessed one, the Buddha, paid respects to him, sat down to one side and said to him, Bhante, is it possible for a monk to enter a kind of samadhi in which there would be no tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit regarding this body with its consciousness and towards all external objects? And one might reach and remain in that mental liberation, that wisdom liberation, freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom, liberation of mind, liberation by wisdom, ceto vimutti, panya vimutti, upasampaja viharato, in which there were no tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit. I read these words and I felt so overjoyed at heart, so glad at heart. Oh, such an ease to read these words, and how hopeful, how favorable, how wonderful to read them. Bhante, is it possible for someone to enter a kind of samadhi in which there would be no tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit regarding this body with its consciousness and towards all external objects, that one might reach and remain in that mental liberation, that liberation by wisdom, in which there are no tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, and conceit. Reading these words of self-identity, possessiveness, and conceit, I feel them, what they're often connected to and attached to, the afflictions, the sense of the friction and the binding and the tension and just the affliction, really, of these things, and just the idea of there being a possibility of some kind of samadhi, some kind of meditation or stillness, unification of mind, in which there would be no such tendencies. I noticed on reading this how my heart just really, as I said, just like leapt for joy, just so inclined, and even just reading something like this, how we can feel our heart's inclination for such. It's like applying and directing one's mind. These are, even also qualities of the first jhana, or the first level of jhana samadhi, mental absorption or unification of mind, to be applying and directing one's mind to a particular object or a particular topic. And then we can observe with mindfulness of body, feelings, and mind, especially with this practice of mindfulness of mind and mental states, how quickly we can really sense the shift with a particular thought, or a particular way we're applying or directing our mind in seconds, even in fractions of seconds. How quickly we can feel that shift in the quality and the sense of the mind and heart, and whether it's afflicted and bound up and catching on something, or narrow or contracted or delimited in various kinds of ways, just with a word like self-identity, the word possessiveness, the words conceit, and how quickly, just so fast, what they bring up in our mind and heart. And even just to say those words, in which there would be no such tendencies with regards to the body, with its consciousness, and towards all external objects. And just the thought of that and seeing what the mind, what the heart does, even just with that thought, and feeling in the body, then so quickly in a kind of cascade. I can feel it even all the way down to my belly, around the belly button. And then, how there's the binding up that happens even around the belly button with the possessiveness and conceit and these identity views and all that. Yeah. So then the Buddha replies, Ananda, it is possible. Ananda, if it occurs to a monk, and we know that here, when the Buddha is saying bhikkhu, then this doesn't only just mean male monks. There may even be many people in the audience, and even the Buddha at one time was identifying or describing what he called the true bhikkhu, and even explicitly was mentioning the person might not even be a monk, they might not even be a monastic, what he was calling the true bhikkhu. Likewise, he mentioned similarly for the true Brahmin, not someone who is just a priest or an ordained religious or from a hereditary spiritual or philosophical or religious tradition, not those characteristics. The meaning was not those characteristics of identity, bound up in delimited identity. No tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit. Ananda, it is possible. Ananda, if it occurs to a monk, this is peaceful, this is sublime, the stilling of all activities, the relinquishment of all acquisitions, the elimination of craving, dispassion, cessation, nibbana. In this way, a monk can enter a kind of samadhi in which there will be no tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit regarding this body with its consciousness and towards all external objects. And one might reach and remain in that mental liberation, that wisdom liberation, that freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom, in which there are no tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit. Ananda, this is what I was referring to in response to Punaka's question in the Parayana. This is a group of teachings, sometimes translated as the way to the further shore. Really deep, amazing, wonderful. The scholars say early teachings, early teachings of the Buddha, really with this depth, quality of freedom, of liberation, of clarity, of simplicity. Ananda, this is what I was referring to in response to Punaka's question in the Parayana. Punaka was a person who was asking this question. When I said, this is the Buddha speaking, having evaluated the entire world, they are not disturbed by anything in it. Peaceful, serene, untroubled, unwanting, they have transcended birth and decay. This is a translation by Venerable Bhikkhu Sudaso, Bhante Sudaso, of Empty Cloud Monastery in New Jersey. Having comprehended the highs and lows in the world, he is not perturbed by anything in the world. Peaceful, fumeless, untroubled, wishless, he has, I say, crossed over birth and old age. This is a translation by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. Actually, during this Vassa, there's a particular verse from the Dhammapada that I've been reciting and contemplating over and again during this time, which reminds me very much of this in meaning from the Sukha Vagga, the happiness chapter of the Dhammapada. I'll read in English this particular section. Ah, so happily we live without hate among those who hate. Among people who hate, we live without hate. Ah, so happily we live without affliction amongst those afflicted. Among afflicted people, we live without affliction. Ah, so happily we live without agitation among those agitated. Among people who are agitated, we live without agitation. I've recited this many times before, so I think those at our hermitage who are on now during this 3 months, they heard me recite so many times, and maybe even from before we started this Vassa, those at the monastery might have heard me recite it as well. I will one more time now, today, tonight, under this full moon. Susukhang vatajiwama aturesum anaturam aturesum manosesum viharama anaturam. So atura here, it reminds me of the English word under duress. People can be under mental duress, under emotional duress, as well as under physical duress. So there are a lot of different translations of this this verse, and sometimes emphasizing disease. And we might think, physical disease. And certainly, it's not. It's included. Also translated as distress. Certainly, physical, mental, emotional distress. Also translated as affliction. And certainly there's mental, emotional, physical affliction. So amidst the various kinds of afflictions that there are in our world, that there are amongst humanity, amongst living beings, amongst all kinds of forms of life that have consciousness, perception, feelings, emotions, there is this. And this has been quite a challenging one for me, because the way that I learned about compassion as an American growing up, then I feel like maybe there's something wrong if others are in suffering, for me not to be suffering, or for me to be thinking about not suffering. If others are in suffering, isn't that unkind? Is it that uncompassionate? And yet, when I look at it clearly, I know for myself that when I am in suffering, when I am afflicted, yes, it can be a wonderful refuge to find others who are suffering similarly, and then we support one another in our suffering together. But also, many times what's really needed, like if we feel like we're drowning, we don't need to catch on to somebody else who's drowning. We need to catch on to, we need to see, we need to be able to touch and be in contact with someone who's not drowning, someone who has a foothold or a handhold, someone who's not being swept away is really what we need at that time. Otherwise, we can even just pull anyway. We can join in misery together, pulling one another down, drowning. We can do it, and there can be some kind of satisfaction also in having a pity party together. And but I'm not talking about the people who aren't being compassionate in having a foothold and who are just looking away, or who have gained something and are like ignoring and damning the others. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the kind of state that we might wish for in others. When we feel like we really are suffering, and to be able to encounter a kind of presence of seeing and knowing, kindness, compassion, and care that's not just all drawn into and likewise just all afflicted and just deluded in the same ways I'm deluded, and afflicted in the same ways I'm afflicted. But to be able to encounter those that seem to have a measure of safety and clarity and well-being and health themselves. And for ourselves also, even in our own selves, in our path of practice, to find and develop such spaces. And this is really what I was thinking about, and what I was trying to get at also in our meditation practice together this evening is this, like really moving into and looking into and opening up and developing those qualities, those spaces in ourselves that are able to touch and able to hold all of the afflictions and places of binding and places of grasping, places of pain, where there's fear, where there's doubt, where there's worry and stress, and everything, all of these things that there are in our world, there are amongst living beings, and many kinds of living beings, and we have these experiences ourselves, really being able to sense and know and feel the refuge, opening up and developing the refuge in ourselves and going deep into the Dhamma. So many times in this path of practice for vipassana, we contemplate anicca, dukkha, and anatta, impermanence, transitoriness, also dukkha, however you like to translate it. Sometimes I like to translate it as suffering, pain, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair kinds of suffering. Sometimes just like the nature of instability, just the instability of things, and just to recognize also if there's instability and if there's grasping, then there's shaking, and there's instability. There's just it's not stable. You try to grasp and hold on to it for security, for safety, as a refuge, and it just doesn't provide that. Those things in that way just are not able to provide that level of safety and security if we want them to be something that they're not. If we're trying to get something stable and secure out of them when by nature they're not stable and not secure, then it's just, I feel like that's a failing proposition. So how are we going to find it? And looking at this, the number one, of course, then not grasping, not grasping for security, for stability at things that are unstable. And then also anatta, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So the non-self, the things not being permanent and having any fixed, stable identity unto themselves. Yes, so we look into, we contemplate these deeply, and often just these three. But just in this last week in the Vassa, and these last few days, then also there's the way that this teaching goes further than this, or it takes there's the way that it can be directed further along these lines. In this way, then there's the contemplation of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. then also from anatang going to sunyatang. Sunyata means emptiness. So from selflessness then to emptiness. And many people say selflessness and emptiness, they're just a different way of saying the same thing. But likewise, people say similarly, anicca, impermanence, is also a different way of saying the same thing. Even dukkha is a different way of saying the same thing. Here in this hall, there are windows on one side, there are windows on the other side, there are even windows above and there, and also there are several doors. Then one way that this is expressed and explained is like, looking in from one window or door. It's unique unto itself, and the view from that window is distinctive. And also looking in from the other window on the other side, it's also unique. Its shape, and even if you name it, describe it, its name and description will be different. You look inside through that window. And then there's the window from above, and also distinctive and unique. It has a different name and different characteristics in a way. And then you look inside this room from that window. And each of them actually, from each of these perspectives, it may look slightly different, but then also we understand basically we're looking into the same room. Basically, we're looking at the same thing, but each of these ways of looking is unique and distinctive. Or from the door, if we talk about entering into these contemplations and investigating them from one door, from another door, aniccaṃ, dukkhaṃ, anattaṃ, impermanence, suffering, non-self, then sunyataṃ, nibbānaṃ, sukhaṃ. The next three, sunyataṃ, nibbānaṃ, sukhaṃ. Sunyataṃ means emptiness. Nibbāna, I don't have a good translation for. And then sukhaṃ, happiness or bliss. So moving into, in this last week, I felt inclined to move into these next three contemplations. So they're like paired contemplations with aniccaṃ, dukkhaṃ, and anattaṃ into the sunyataṃ, the emptiness, nibbāna, and sukhaṃ, sublime happiness, bliss, contemplations. Yes. So even 2 weeks ago, in the Dhamma talk given by Ajahn Brahmawara, and then also in the recent sutta teaching given by Ayasophana, then there were another three that were mentioned that are akin to these. It also starts with sunyata, emptiness, then sunyataṃ, signlessness, animitaṃ, and wishlessness, apanahitaṃ. These three. So I don't know if you may have, many of you here I know participated in this particular recent teaching that was given by Ayasophana, and I picked up on those words and those contemplations, having heard them and being reminded of them, and I felt how important it is to hear and to be reminded of these deep, profound, sublime and contemplations, because these three are called gateways to liberation. Doors, they're called, what is it? Vimokkha dvara means doors to liberation, and vimokkha mukha means like source or head, like a fountainhead of liberation. Yes, so emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. So to go deep into these contemplations. So etaṃ santaṃ, etaṃ panitaṃ, yadidang sabba sankhara samato. Sabupadi patinisago, tanhakayo, virago, nirodho, nibbananti, to contemplate nibbana and the qualities of nibbana. Etang santang, etang panitang. This is peaceful, this is exquisite. Yaditang, sabba sankhara samato, the stilling of all fabrications, all that we weave, fabricate, create, the relinquishment of all acquisitions. Sab upadi patinisago, upadi, upadana, the things that we cling to, the things that we bind to, the things that we're like applying our craving to consume and try to take nutriment from, even if it's horrible and we want to spit it out. We ate something bad, something like poison. Help, we need medicine from that. Don't eat that again. Oh, don't drink that. That was bad. Bound up, attached, and then afflicted. So upadana, it's there in the 12-fold chain of dependent origination. And the Buddha mentions even in his very first teaching, then also with regards to the 5 aggregates, then the 5 aggregates themselves, forms, feelings, perceptions, sankharas, fabrications or intentional volitions and consciousness, they themselves are not the problem. It's the upadana, attachment and clinging, binding up to these things, that then that's where the affliction then can arise. That's where all the suffering can arise. And with the releasing of these, then this is being said, this is peace, this is exquisite. The stilling or being brought to peace, the samatha, samato, the stilling of all fabrications, the relinquishment of all, here it says acquisitions. Anyway, the things that we think about as objects for clinging and attachment, that's what's called acquisitions here. Whatever you think that you can attach to and cling to and get bound up with and get caught up with, that's what's being called an acquisition here. It's not talking about gains in the path and this peaceful sublime. It's not talking about this as an object for acquisition in this way. Rather, it's talking about how through opening and through the releasing of this binding, then we can experience what is peaceful, exquisite, the ending of craving, tanhakayo, that thirst, that craving that then leads us to try to seeking, clinging and attachment that's underlying that. That's what's propelling it, cutting that off. That being like even down to the root, removing the root, penetrating into the root of that. So it's said that for thirst and for hunger, there are many things that we can take that then, they might seem like they satisfy us temporarily, but then also that just leads to more thirst and more hunger. But for the Dhamma, we're talking about the Dhamma rain or the drinking of the Dhamma stream, draught of Dhamma. This is one that's said to be the kind of draught that's able to truly quench our thirst with this etang santang, etang panitang. This is peaceful, this is sublime, this is excellent quality of heart. Then nirodho, nibbana. Here, then nibbana was translated as unbinding. And it's a proper translation, although I feel like it's just one element, just one aspect. You could also say the burning, then the quenching, the putting out of the fire for what was binding and catching. Then the unbinding, the releasing, the freedom, all of these are valid. All of these are good. What is nibbana? So I thought for this contemplation now, our final contemplation, really to remember the contemplation, the remembrance of Nibbana, what is peaceful, what is excellent, what is sublime, and that peaceful liberation, the stilling and ending of all kinds of afflictions, unbinding and release and freedom of the heart. I thought to share these reflections with you now in this time. It seems so important among all the things that we contemplate, all the things that we remember, all the things that we meditate upon, even to remember to give the time to turn our minds, to turn our hearts towards this contemplation. If we have ever had any sense of what this is, any whiff of it, like a whiff of pure, clear, fresh mountain air, any taste of it, like the pure mountain spring water, any felt sense of this freedom, this peace, this depth, this excellence, this what is sublime, in any way, to be sure to remember this regularly, and then to explore really with the basis of the skills that we've developed in meditation, to remember to give time to exploring and delving into and plunging into and looking into this, to give ourselves enough time for this. Even a few seconds is most excellent. Not to mention minutes, even in one lifetime, even minutes, even a minute, a fraction of a minute in this lifetime, even once, is something so excellent and profound, and like you can feel like this whole life had meaning and value and depth and worth because of these, such a moment even, yes? Not to mention giving over hours of our precious lives to this that is most exquisite, sublime, beautiful, so also so interesting to explore. Why stay with such limited and narrow things all the time when we have the opportunity and the capability to explore what has such depth and beauty and excellence and freedom, when this is possible in this human life with a human mind and human heart that can be freed, that can be liberated. The Ceto Vimutti and Panya Vimutti. Here I'm speaking about the Ceto Vimutti. The Panya Vimutti then can lead us into this, and also then Panya Vimutti can be a result. Here I'm talking about the qualities of the heart, particularly the qualities of the mind, and delving into these. So, is it possible for a monk to enter a kind of samadhi in which there would be no tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit regarding this body with its consciousness and towards all external objects, such that one might reach and remain in that freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom, in which there are no such tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit? Ananta, it is possible. This is peaceful. This is sublime. A monk contemplates, a person contemplates. They apply and direct their mind. This is peaceful. This is sublime. The stilling of all activities, the relinquishment of all acquisitions, the elimination of craving, dispassion, cessation, nibbana. In this way, one can enter a kind of samadhi in which there are no tendencies of self-identity, possessiveness, or conceit regarding this body with its consciousness, and towards all external objects. One might reach and remain in that liberation of mind, that liberation of heart, that liberation by wisdom, in which all such tendencies have been pacified, calmed, release, and come to an end. The contemplation of Nibbana. So now I want to pause this Dhamma reflection here, but not really to pause it. Rather, I want to open it up further to everyone. For those who are here, welcome anyone who would like to share on this topic or who would like to ask a question. Okay. Tech support is asking me to take a look at the chat.
To the gallery view.
Yes.
You can see the people more easily.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Aye. Sadhu. Okay. And then we're going to change to gallery view here. Nice to see all of you. Now we're in gallery view together. Well, blessings to everyone. It's beautiful to see you. Adriana, Arthur, Shubangi, Dhammadharini audience. Who is that? Christine, Anane, Regina, Mudita, Hasini, Matthew, Chaturi, Shweyi, I don't know how to pronounce your name properly, Janaki. Wonderful to see all of you. Now I'm looking over to the chat. Adriana says, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Adriana, kind hello to the Venerables and everyone on there with Anjali and a smile. Oh, Anjali and smile right back to you. Can we show those here? Everyone, I would like everyone to actually be able to see a little bit more of our monastic community. I ask so much of tech support. Then also from Janaki, greetings to everyone. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Mechi, Shirley, and to everyone. Lovely to be with you all with 3 Angelis to everyone. And does Vapoya signify the first occasion of teaching Abhidharma by the Buddha? My understanding was that actually the Buddha went to teach the Abhidharma during this entire Vassa time, 1 year. And that then this full moon was the time of the Buddha's return. However, I would say that in Tibetan traditions, this day, I'm not sure how to pronounce it properly also, Labab Duchen, Duchen is celebrated 1 week later after this now. So if you have friends who are in Tibetan Buddhism, then they may be celebrating one of what's considered to be one of the most enormously meritorious days of the entire year, 1 week from now. And then listening to the Dhamma, practicing meditation, contemplating and discussing the Dhamma according to the Tibetan traditions on such a day is considered, the merits are considered to be just magnified exponentially. So Theravada traditions, often we don't say these kinds of things, and yet people really are encouraged to gather together on this day. And many Buddhist temples and monasteries around the world, even with COVID, are trying to gather together online or in person, socially distanced, wearing masks, and listen to the Dhamma and undertake precepts and practice meditation together, and really to enjoy the merits and blessings of this day together. So it's not only us, but there are those all around the world who are doing so at this time. And I do feel like when that happens, that there can be sometimes, we can perceive sometimes a kind of, I don't know, like heightened energy or something, like even also, I mean, we can be unaware, but when we're aware of the Sangha, and when we're aware of others practicing, and when we attune ourselves, even in a hall like this, then it's like you can feel that energy and you can feel what a support it is for your own practice. And when others are gathered together listening to the Dhamma, sometimes how that creates such a conducive environment also for us to attune our minds to the Dhamma and to realize important things in the Dhamma together. So that's coming from something that's, we're a part of that, and we're part of that happening, and we're living that together, but also it's much broader than ourselves. So we know that when we're together with people who are being very stressful and like bound up in all kinds of difficult things, and like how that feels, and when we're with those who are meditating and contemplating Dhamma and practicing together, when we attune to that, how supportive it is. So I'm going to scroll down a little further. There's someone who would like to be anonymous who says, thank you. What can we make of the attractive, even addictive power of certain hindrances? Anger, for example. Oh yes, it's so seductive. And despite its destructive effects, too often we seem to freely choose it when negotiating with daily life. Really? I don't feel like that. I feel more like not like free choice. I feel more like anger is something that if it has a chance to rise up and to ensnare me, then it makes me its slave, and then it brutally brutalizes me. That's my feeling and perspective about it. Not of freely choosing anger in negotiating with daily life. But, you know, if you're someone who does feel like you're freely choosing anger, wow, can you tell me how I can freely choose in this regard? Because if I can freely choose in this regard, I don't want to do it. I find anger so painful, so difficult, so uncomfortable, so problematic that I really, if I have a choice, and I believe I do have the choice, but it's not always immediately apparent in a situation. When we buy into stories of self and other and things and all that, and then those stories come with particular views, and then those views are like where the attachment to those views of self and other is often where the snare happens, I think, in the trap. And it seems to me like it's impossible for the anger to arise without such views and without such ensnarement. And then it's also, as was mentioned, you know, like a drug, it's intoxicating. Really, we can see when practicing with mindfulness of the body and mindfulness of the mind, like what happens to our minds when we get angry. Oh, and what happens to our bodies. And really, if we really feel into that, not only just being carried away by the story, but we really look at what's happening in our bodies and in our minds when we get angry. Oh my, yeah. And then the drug aspect, this happens in the body. And then it's like, in a way, like a wildfire that goes on a rampage through the body and just, you know, burns up so much. I know some people also experience anger in cold ways, and then they feel like they're getting contracted and like getting frozen and almost like suffocated from the anger. So this may depend in a way upon our character, whether we perceive it as something like hot and explosive that's burning, or whether we experience it as something that's like deeply contracting. And I've heard people mention like very cold, like frozen metal contracting or frozen pipes contracting, or this kind of thing. And then feeling often like they can't breathe properly, can't digest properly, and just like so contracted and frozen because of it. So there are lots of different ways that we can experience that, but it's not just mental. These are real experiences happening in the body that are also hard on our bodies. They're hard on our hearts. People die from these things, yeah, in the moments of anger. Sometimes we might think it's harmless, but if we look carefully, practicing mindfulness of the body, we realize it's not harmless. It's really, really hard on our bodies and hard on our feelings and hard on our, we look at what is the kind of quality of our mind when we're angry, and like, is it open and expansive, or is it contracted? Or these things, like looking at that. And when we do look at that, the beauty of this is it can help us come out of our views in a way, and then begin to really experience what's actually happening in the body and with the feelings, with the mind. And when we do that, sometimes there's the beginning then of a settling and the beginning of an unbinding, even a little bit, that can actually help to begin to open up the views and get just a bit more space, tiny bit more space and perspective. And once that starts to open up, sometimes that can even become, even quickly, much more space and perspective. And then we can almost, sometimes for people, it's like snapping out of a dream, like you're just gone crazy for a moment and you're just waking up and coming out of it. And I know then sometimes people will even, like for the body, because what it's just been through, will even, shake afterwards or sweat, or, just in the body, it's then some kind of strange smell in the sweat. It's trying to release the toxins that have just been then pervading the body, and the force of the contraction then trying to shake that off, or like just to breathe deeply and just breathe it all out, and feeling like this incredible, awful stuff is then just being breathed out, and able to breathe in again what is healthy, and coming back to sanity again. So I really see anger as an intoxicant and a kind of insanity, whether mild or more. So if you have a sense of being able to choose, look carefully at what's going on and look and see, is it really harmless? Is it really doing something good for you? You can look at it analytically, check for yourself. If it really is harmless and it's really doing something good for you and for others, then whatever those things are that really are harmless and are really doing something good for you and others, then those are the things that the Buddha mentioned are like good and safe and okay to do. But if it doesn't meet those criteria, then um, developing the ability to come out, to recognize, to come out, to stop, to be able to step away from, to be able to resource ourselves, to develop the resources that we can then remember and have at hand and bring up, remind ourselves to remember and to bring up those things, timely, to come out of these cycles of harm and affliction and, really insanity as quickly as possible. Yeah, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't feel things. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to be responsive. It doesn't mean that if there's harm going on that we shouldn't draw up energy to prevent or to stop or come out of that harm. It doesn't mean that. But there are different ways to do these things. And, trying to stop harm by something that's more, more harmful. It's like, there's plenty of that, right? There's lots and lots of that. But how much does it really help, or how much is it just perpetuating the same kind of cycles? Yeah. Anyway, we can consider carefully for ourselves, how do we get to a point of instinctively rejecting anger rather than embracing it? Yeah, this is what we were just talking about. recognize both. So there's thanks for panning around the room. I frequently experience tension around the mouth when doing anapanasati. I try to breathe into it and relax, but it seems to persist and I feel it disrupts the meditation. Oh, well, thank you for asking that. I appreciate that. And also, we're having technical difficulties. And I want to just ask also, there's, yes, please. Oh, okay. Skillfulness. So I want to say now also, where we have the clock set up here has the light shining directly on it, but with a shadow passing over it, I can see what time it is. And so then I see it's time for us for this evening, for this time together to be wrapping up. And thank you for that question. And I hope that for the practice of anapanasati and this particular question that you'll find good guidance and good advice in this regard. I love the Dhamma, and those here know how I could go on with discussing the Dhamma for even hours more after this, delightedly. And in fact, at our hermitage during the Vassa, we had on the new and the full moons, then we had the Dhamma discussion up till midnight every full moon and new moon night. So I feel so inclined to jump into that. And also I want to keep my commitment to all those who are here with regards to our ending time. So thanks to everyone who has joined together this evening, and also all those who have joined together here at our monastery, at our hermitage, and far and wide amongst all venerables and Dhamma friends who've joined in this Vassa time practice of Cittānupassana together. And I feel for myself in a way like it's just beginning. After 3 months of working with this, it's just beginning. I just really want to delve into this far more deeply now with the bit that has been gained during this time. So I want to encourage everyone in really going further with our dedication, blessing and rejoicing in all the practice during this time together, and also welcoming anyone who would like to really join me in the dedication to continue and to go further in deepening this path of practice. So in a few days on October 31st, we're going to be having our the friends who have pledged to offer the Katina Chivara Dana, Katina robe of merit, and the day of giving as the monastic community emerges from the Vassa. I'd like to welcome everyone to join in together. You can find information about that at Dhammadharini.net on the website, how you can join in. I don't know if there are more spaces left in person. Also from afar, we'll be having a Dhamma Talks marathon and able to explore further. I hope some of the questions we didn't answer may come up in the Dhamma Talk marathon on October 31st. And then also for all those, anyone who feels like they might like to join us in the deep, quiet, simple practice of winter retreat, we'll be welcoming now, after Katina, welcoming the applications to join in together. And if you haven't been with our community before, you would think you might like to join, possible to come for a visit to find out if this would be good for you. In November, in December, before our winter retreat starts, January, February, March. So warm welcome and invitation to you and anyone who you feel this would be an excellent opportunity for. Now I want to come back to just blessing the end of this final Uposatha, full moon Uposatha of this Vassa. Recollecting all of the merit of this time, all of the great goodness for oneself. Here in our monastic community also, I recollect for others. I feel so glad, so appreciative for our friends and supporters. And I think about wanting to share the blessings and merits out far and wide to everyone, to all beings, especially to all those in need who could receive these blessings. Also to all those we've received life from, all those who have shared Dhamma with us, all those who helped us, all who are our karmic debtors, means sharing the blessings and merits with anyone and everyone who we have unresolved issues with, for the peace, reconciliation, blessing, the coming to healing and release, freedom of that karmic debt. I want to invite our monastic community now to join in chanting the verses of sharing and aspiration. And we'll ask to change the mic over so you'll be able to hear our whole monastic community. And welcome to also, if you know this chant, to join in chanting together. Thumbs up from tech support. Thanks to all who have offered tech support during this whole Vassa time. Many, many blessings to you. May your practice flourish. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration.
Through the goodness that arises from our practice,
may our spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, our mothers, our fathers, and our relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest devas and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of our lives. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless through the goodness that arises from our practice. And through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until we realize Nibbanam in every kind of birth. May we have upright minds, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken our resolve. The Buddha is our excellent refuge. unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is our Lord and guide. The Sangha is our supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and illusion be dispelled. Aham Sukhita Homi Nidukha Homi Awera Homi Apaya Paja Homi Anika Homi Sukhi Atmanam Hariharami. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. Sape Sata Sukhita Hontum Awera Hontum Apaya Paja Hontum Anika Hontum Sukhi Atmanam Hariharantum. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. Sape Satam Sapa Dukkha Pamochantum. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. Welcome to join me now for Arahang, remembering the triple gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and 3 gratitude vows. Arahang Samma Sambuddhassa Bhagavanta Avivaddini Awakato Bhagavato Dhamma Dana